Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please all rise for the most honorable Judge Burback. Yep, go ahead and rise. Yep. Okay.
You may be
please
seated.
be seated. Oh, I'm sorry. That was okay.
No, that's okay. You're good, bailiff. Now you're back to juror.
I have juror hat now.
I would like to welcome everyone to the trial of the century. The Booger Wall trial is now commenced. We have our three defendants, Thor Johnson, Sven Johnson, and Gus Johnson. For a little background of people that don't know, in the late 2000s, while these three were young children, a mystery started. A wall in their house started gathering boogers, and none of the three who were capable of such a thing have claimed responsibility for what they've done. So we're gathered here today with our jurors and our defendants, and obviously your Honorable Judge Edward Burback, to find the truth. And so I want to start off by giving the floor to, and I also actually want to share one thing before we start the trial. During the podcast episode where we talked about it, I thought it would be funny to say Sven did Booger Wall because it sounded like Bush did 9/11. And that started a meme saying Sven did Booger Wall. That is unfair, so I would ask everyone listening and all the jurors to clear your mind. There is no evidence currently to show that Sven did Booger Wall any more than his two brothers. So we will start this at an even trial. I apologize, Sven. And actually, I will throw the floor to Sven to start with his opening statement.
All right. Thank you very much, Eddie. As you said, I feel like I've been the primary suspect in the Booger Wall case. This is unjust, obviously, and I have evidence that basically excludes me from any blame for Booger Wall. It's basically implausible that I did it, and I will be calling in someone to help me testify that. That's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Sven. I will now throw to his younger brother, Thor Johnson.
Okay, thank you very much, Eddie. I have a short prepared statement here.
Might I add, Thor, that you look very dapper today. That has nothing to do with the trial. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. I would like to note both of my brothers here. As you can see, no tie. If you want to kick it over to Gus,
going to smack
no tie. And I have not only a tie, but I'm also wearing pants and a belt and a full suit. So with that being said, here is my opening statement. Gus, Eddie, Sven, viewers, but most importantly, jury. I'm honored to be in your presence and to meet some of you for the very first time, albeit under unfortunate circumstances. I would like to start off by admitting my complete innocence in this matter, but unfortunately that will not suffice. The proceedings that are about to take place are a regrettable occurrence, but in my mind there are only two possible suspects, and they just so happen to be the other two defendants. When Sven or Gus smeared their boogers on the boys' bathroom wall that fateful day, they likely never dreamed it would go this far, and I would assume they were relieved when it all blew over. However, with Sven's recollection of the incident just 2 podcast episodes ago, a proverbial cat was let out of the bag, and one of the other suspects was haunted by the almost 11-year-old cold case that had yet to be determined. I'm determined to bring swift justice to one or potentially both of these two suspects, and make them feel the shame that they have successfully avoided until now. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Wow.
That's it.
What a statement. What a powerful statement from Thor Johnson. That's going to be hard to follow up, but Gus Johnson, I would like to give you the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm very, very happy that I'm the one following it up, as Sven could not match this quality. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would like to point out today that I am not on trial here. My brothers are not on trial here. What is on trial here today is the law, and the law is just, fair, and it is realistic. And today I will prove to you, fine fellows of the jury, that I, beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt, was not the person that did Booger Wall. And I would like to prove today that one other member that is on trial has made a damning on video, on audio error in their recounting of the Booger Wall situation previously, and I very, very much look forward to sharing that lie and that inconsistency with you today. So, what do we leave with? Gus Johnson did not do the Booger Wall. I was not there. I was too old, and I just was not the culprit. And if I might add a fourth and final point, again, there has been a lie and an inconsistency in a previous testimony. So I thank you, the Honorable, very sexy-looking Judge Burback today for presiding over what will inevitably be the truth. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Sounds
Sustained.
awfully close to bribery there, but
I would like to make a quick judge objection. You three are absolutely on trial. I just want to add that, and I also will not have a kangaroo court. So I would actually like to throw to Gus. You seem to, in your opening statement, mention that there's an inconsistency in the storytelling of Booger Wall. So I would like to give you the floor right now to recollect your version of Booger Wall and what you believe is an inconsistency.
Thank you, Your Honor. I thank you, Mr. Burback. Again, Mr. Burback has been one of the leading figures in propagating the idea that Sven is the one that did Booger Wall. So thank you for your work on the ground in the field.
Objection. How dare you try and start a kangaroo court in my court? I would like you to take that back. Sven, I am neutral to everybody. It was a meme, and we're moving on.
you.
And how dare you?
I'll redact it out of respect. Yes, Your Honor. As I pointed out previously, there is a certain member that is on trial that had a very glaring inconsistency in their previous statement. And if I may, I do have a bit of evidence to support this inconsistency, if I may bring it forth.
I would say first, let's hear your version of Booger Wall, and then let's hear it.
Absolutely. My version of Booger Wall. I want to take you all back, okay? And I will bring out evidence to refute this in the future here, but I want to take you all back. The year is 2009. I am 14 years old. Do you remember picking your nose and wiping boogers on the wall when you were 14 years old? No, I don't think so. I think you remember wearing a nice Aeropostale t-shirt, playing with some tech decks on the weekends, maybe starting your budding sexuality and making out with girls behind the bleachers on Saturday nights if you're so lucky. You're 14. You got time for women? Maybe you're starting to learn the driver's license situation by having dad take you out back and learn to drive a stick, you know? This is not an age at which somebody takes a dump, pardon my language, Your Honor, takes a dump and wipes boogers all across the family bathroom wall. Now, back to my inconsistency, if I may. Sven Johnson, in the previous episode, where we discussed the booger wall, mentioned a key piece of evidence. Your Honor, I need to bring forth evidence at this point to back up my stake. Can I say one thing and bring it forth?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, sir. Now, I want to just play a quick audio excerpt of the previous podcast. This is from the recording of the title, Now Entering Monkey Town, the Gus and Eddy and Sven and Thor podcast, released on April 13th, 2020 on the Gus and Eddy channel. If you go to the timestamp at 1828, it's where I'm playing this audio file from. You can find it yourself at home here. I'm going to go ahead and just play it into the microphone for our jury now, and if any parts of it cut out, I know it by heart, and I'll repeat one single phrase that Sven said. If you are ready to listen.
You may proceed.
It was Dad. Here was the thing, too, because we went, forensic with this shit, too. The boogers were so high up on the wall that for me and Thor to smear them, we would have had to stand on the edge of the toilet seat.
Right.
Okay. I didn't do it!
Did everybody catch that last bit that Sven said? The boogers were so high up on the wall that I would have had to stand on the toilet seat to maybe reach them. So high, dare I say, that they were completely out of reach. They were undoubtedly not the people that did the booger wall because it was just too high, Your Honor. Is that fair in assuming that from Sven's statement?
I believe that is what Sven made it sound like, yes.
That's correct. Now, if I may direct the attention of the jury to the Discord chat very shortly here. I have obtained a little piece of visual evidence as gathered by my sister, who is a full-time resident in the Johnson household. And she has taken a photo of that said bathroom and the quote-unquote high booger wall placement. This is a photo of my own flesh and blood mother, who is the person that discovered the booger wall, demonstrating where on the wall she found the boogers. Right into the chat. Boom. Your Honor, could you describe what you see?
I believe you put it in maybe the wrong chat, Gus. So
Okay, then I will redact my boom and put it in.
I would put the new boom, but I would redact maybe 10 boom points from that boom.
If you guys can hear me, I'd like to apologize to the courtroom. My Discord application crashed. I'm now back. Video doesn't seem to work, but I can hear, and I hope you can hear me.
Okay. Sounds good, Jakey. Sorry you had to deal with that.
It's okay.
Now, again, I draw your attention to the chat, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This is the height at which my mom discovered the booger wall. Visual reference just sent.
Wow.
Your Honor, could you describe the general height of the area indicated by my mom?
I would actually prefer that you ask Sven that.
Please.
Thank you for the cross-questioning. Sven, could you describe to me in metric systems just about how high up on the wall that area would be?
I would like to. Are you using
Answer the
this
question.
as
It's a simple
concrete evidence?
question.
Are you using this as concrete evidence, a recollection 11 years after the fact of where my mom thought the boogers were on the wall?
It's a simple question.
We don't
Sven.
know.
Could you tell me how high up the area on the wall is that Mom is indicating, please?
Okay, I will play along to your game just because I know I am exempt. You'll find out later. I'd say the boogers were about 3 to 4 feet off the wall.
I said
3 to 4
metrics,
feet.
please.
Metrics? 1 meter.
1 meter. Interesting, because this seems to contradict the previous statement that you're on record as saying that the booger wall was frankly, quote, too high for either Thor and I to have reached the boogers.
I did not say the booger wall was too high. If you play the quote back, I think you'll say some of the boogers were so high.
Interesting. Well, we are looking at photographic evidence as sent over by the primary witness to this crime, so I'd like to think that that's pretty bias-free.
I would like to pause for a moment, and actually, while one of you look it up, I would like to know if Sven asked if some of the boogers were that high. But in the meantime, I believe that our jury, Mr. Gonzalez, has a question.
Yes.
Yes, the jury would like to inquire how tall the mother in question is. We see her on the toilet there, and I can only assume that's a normal-sized toilet, but I'd just like to be sure that she's not freakishly tall, and she's really pointing to somewhere 7 feet off the ground.
I can go ahead and field that one, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you for your valuable question. And our mother is approximately 5'11" inches, 6 foot in shoes. 6 foot in shoes, so completely normal height there for the toilet and for our
above
mother.
average.
Above average.
Above
yes.
average.
All right. Okay. I want to thank Mr. Johnson for the answer, and I want to thank Mr. Gonzalez for that question and clearing it up. We now know that Mrs. Johnson is normal mom size.
Yes.
So I would like to say, so Sven, did you find any proof that you said some of the boogers were that high? Gus, would you like to replay part of the clip?
I would love to, Your Honor. Thank you. Here's that timestamp again. Again, this is now 1826 I roll back to.
That was the thing. Here was like another. Parents. Dude, if it was dad, Here was the thing too, because we went like forensic with this shit too. The boogers were so high up on the wall that for me and Thor to smear them, we would have had to stand on the edge of the toilet seat. Right.
Okay.
That's
The
all, Mr.
boogers-
Johnson.
All right.
Thank
You
you.
caught me on that one.
Yeah.
You caught me on that one.
Okay, so let the record show that Sven Johnson did say that the boogers were too high.
I had a
And
faulty
also,
recollection.
Mr. Johnson has shown that the primary witness in the booger wall crime has said that it's lower. But I might add, 11 years after the crime. So now I would like to throw to somebody who has not gotten as much talk time as both the Johnsons right now. Thor, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do, Mr. Burback, the Honorable Mr. Burback. I would just like
you.
to point out that while we were on the topic of false testimony, in Gus's earlier testimony when he was painting us his illustrious picture of his 14-year-old self, he mentioned that he would not be the one to be on the toilet taking a dump. Excuse the profanity again. He would not be the one to be on the dump picking his nose and wiping it on the wall. Now, I would open this up to the jury. They could look back at any of the previous statements, and no one had ever said anything about anyone taking a dump
Yeah.
while they were picking their nose.
All these specific details.
So, with these specific details, I would be led to believe that Gus may he may know a little bit more than he leads on. And I would just like to kick that over to Gus and ask what his thoughts are on that, because it had previously been stated that, yes, while they were on the bathroom wall, no, it had never been established what the bowel movements of the person in question were at that point in time. Thank you very much.
I would like to ask then, to settle, just to clear things up for my jury here, we need to find in agreement what the height of the booger wall smears were between the Johnsons. We need to settle first what that is before I believe we can have any other discussion, because it's a question of height and age versus everyone being accessible to take a dump and smear boogers. So I would like to just a quick tally from the three Johnsons, what you think the height of booger wall was from your recollection.
Can I call my mom in to help back this up, because she has the most developed brain at the time. She can verify how tall the boogers were. Mind if I call her in real quick?
Let me just ask my jury real quick. It's not normal for a judge to, but I want to just make sure nobody has any questions before we bring her in. That's a thumbs down from Drew, or Mr. Gooden. Apologies. It's a thumbs up from Mr. Douglas. Okay, we got a one. Okay, we have a question for Mr. Nestor.
Yes, I do have a question. In the photographic evidence that was provided of Booger Wall, are the three Johnson brothers in agreement that the wall that the mother is pointing to, that is Booger Wall, or was Booger Wall a different wall in the bathroom? Thank you, Your Honor.
Mind if I field this?
I would say I want to go down just with all three of you in very short statements if you agree whether that is Booger Wall or not.
Yes,
we'll go Sven first. Sven, that's a yes?
Wall. Yes,
Gus?
from Thor.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I would now like to call Mrs. Johnson to the stand.
All right, I'll grab her. Mom.
She's outside. She's typically pretty unruly. So
Permission
we keep her outside.
grab a sweatshirt because I'm a little
I
chilly.
just want to ask her.
Go for
You'll
it.
just have to get close to the mic when you
Sustained.
talk. Right now, the main question is, how high up on the wall were some of these boogers? Like, what was
Your
the
Honor,
range?
objection.
Hold on.
Let's formalize Mrs. Johnson's entrance here.
First of all, I informed you, Sven, at the beginning of this that I will not have a kangaroo court, and I want to stress that immediately right now. And so I would like to welcome Mrs. Johnson to the stand. I'm sorry that you had to come here under these circumstances. I'm sure there's a level of shame toward your boys here, and I'm sorry that you had to show up for this. So now I would like to throw to, it seems Sven had some questioning that he would like to do right now. Go ahead, Sven.
Yeah, this is partially out of general curiosity too. What, in your recollection, what was like the highest booger you think you saw on the wall? Were they all centralized in that one spot that you indicated in the picture, or get close to the mic?
I'm just showing with my hands. I don't even need to say this is how high the boogers
That's
are.
the highest booger. Mm-hmm. The highest booger was that high. Okay. She has the best recollection.
Gus, have you shown the image that?
Yes.
Okay.
Of you on the toilet? Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just make a statement before everybody carries on? I don't want to waste anyone's time. I know that your time is valuable, and I haven't prepared or rehearsed anything, but I wanted to do a quick rundown of each of the 4 children. Do you have time for that?
Right into the mic. Absolutely, right into the mic.
Absolutely.
All right. Just don't zoom in on me. I cut my own bangs yesterday, and I don't need that. Are you ready?
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. In 2009, Hani was 5 years old. She did not use that bathroom. The boys peed everywhere. It was disgusting. Do you have that picture of Hani? Okay.
I can send the picture into the chat of my sister, yes.
That's fine. In 2009, Thor was 7, and he is right-handed. That's just an important fact. And Sven was...
Wait.
No?
I'm going to call you in as my witness later on.
Just cool it.
Your Honor,
Sven...
what is this crosstalk?
No. I'm just going to... This thing keeps falling out of my ear. Do you want to pop it back in?
Put your own input in.
I don't want to wreck it. Okay, Sven was 9. He's also right-handed. Gus was 13 and maybe 3/4. He the measurement on the measuring wall shows him at about 5'10". I am actually 5'11 and 7/8. I call it 6 feet to be, just to sound really cool. And Gus had a similar reach to mine. So that's just the height stuff. They're all right-handed. If the boys had stood and urinated, they would have had to pick their nose with their left hand, and then they could have reached the spot on the booger wall where all the boogers were found. They're all right-handed, so that I'm going to just go on here. So no Hani. The next thing is that Sven has overflowed a few toilets.
I'm calling you in later.
Listen, I'm getting this all out now because I'm not coming back and forth. I got to do the dishes. Sven has overflowed the toilet on at least 2 occasions. One time he overflowed it in that upstairs bathroom and it dripped down into the main level. So he went through a phase where he did not use that toilet because of the overflowing. Now, here's another point of emphasis. Thor slept on the bottom bunk. When we took the bunk beds apart several years later, I found a lot of boogers wiped on the slat that was underneath the top bunk. There was no one else who could have wiped those boogers there except for Thor. So Thor, I'm ruling out Sven, I'm ruling out Hani. Thor is a mild suspect, but my primary suspect is Gus. Before the other children were born, Gus was about 5 years old, and I found boogers across the room from his bed on the wall, indicating that he had flicked them, and then they had stuck to the wall. So he's already a booger wall perpetrator as a 4 or 5-year-old child with no younger siblings. The other thing is that Gus has a very imaginative sense of recollection. And did you touch on this?
No.
He was not. Okay, I'm not going to say it. Sven will talk about this piece. I want to take this time, Gus, to quickly apologize for calling you a melonhead. We all know that you have, because you have a very big, smart brain. But the reality is that your big, smart brain is often so engrossed in creative endeavors that you forget what you're doing. So I think you absentmindedly wiped boogers on the wall in the bathroom. Thank you.
Wow. I want to thank you for making those statements, Mrs. Johnson, and helping us find the truth. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow, we have a lot to talk about now, but I do want to throw to jury questions immediately before anyone makes any statements. So I didn't see any typed in the chat just yet. If you want to type now, if anyone has any questions, and if not, we will throw to the Johnson brothers. So we'll wait a second and probably cut this out of the podcast. All right. I would like to throw to Mr. Gooden for a question.
All right. So before, I have a lot of notes taken in regards to the crime at hand, but I have a question for Honorable Mr. Burback. I've heard you say the term kangaroo court several times now, and I just want to establish what the hell that means. Is it a bouncy court? Is it a court where we're in a pouch of a bigger court? I want some clarity there. Thank you.
If you were to Google kangaroo court,
I don't have internet access.
All right. Kangaroo court is when a mock trial is done, an unprofessional trial, and you find the guilty party without the actual law and without normal proceedings. So I will not have a kangaroo court today. Everything is serious. Everything is real. The sentencing will be followed, and I want to make sure that that is known by all the jury and all the defendants and to myself in the mirror when I repeated it 5 times this morning.
No kangaroo court. I respect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gooden. I would like to now check. I heard another notification. It seems that Mr. Christensen has a question. Go for it.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to double check when the Johnson mother was talking about the time frame of when a younger Gus was wiping boogers on a previous wall, perhaps by flicking them across the room. How old did she say that he was? What was the timeline on that? Around 5?
I believe she said that he was 5 when the boogers were flicked and 13 when booger wall
Okay, I had
happened.
13.
Your Honor, objection? Objection?
Well, let him finish the questioning first. Do you have anything
I was
else?
going to say also, how old did she say Thor was when he was wiping boogers on the bed frame that she had the slat from? Or the bunk
I'm not
bed?
sure if I caught that. Does anybody else know?
I don't believe there was a previous stated thing, but we were.
It's
in that,
whenever they were.
I believe it was 5.
Taking apart the
So
bunk
you-
beds.
both of, according to the
five
mother,
seems to be the
around the age of 5, both of you were wiping boogers on stuff. Sorry, I almost cussed.
Right. Thank you
Both
for the
being
question. I would
Gus
like to
and
then
Thor.
establish through that questioning that yes, the information that we had found, despite what the internet is saying, is it seems that we have learned that Thor Johnson and Gus Johnson are serial booger flickers and booger wipers, and it seems that we have no evidence of Sven doing that in the past. So I do want to make sure that's clear of the evidence that came out. But I would like to say that Mrs. Johnson said her primary suspect was her oldest son, Gustav Johnson, and I would like to throw to him for a response.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I have a bit of a bullet point list in terms of refuting various claims and clarifying certain semantics of previous statements here. As Mr. Christensen indicated, Mrs. Johnson did not say that I was 13, but rather, in her words, 13 3/4. And to back up that claim, I would like to submit into the chat right now a piece of evidence that confirms that right now. So if you look there, boom. I have a Facebook post from my mother that was submitted by her on February 27th, 2009. I will read that Facebook post aloud now. For reference, first of all, this is when Facebook was in its previous format and most people were formatting their status updates as if they were saying something. For example, Gus Johnson is feeling hungry. With that context, here's what it says. Deb Johnson discovered yet another batch of boogers on the bathroom wall. How many times do we have to have this conversation? Now, February 27th, 2009, my birthday falls on June 20th. I was born in 1995. So, at this time, I was 13 3/4. You'll forgive me for rounding up because as you could see when my mom spoke about her height, she's indicated that she was 5'11" and some change, but naturally she rounds up to 6 feet. I don't think that I should be...
Your Honor.
Please.
I will allow it. Let's hear it.
Okay. Yet another, she says. Yet another. How many times must we have this conversation? It could have been going on for the whole year. I don't think you're allowed to round up a whole year. Just because you were at the 3/4 mark on February 27th, when she clearly says, yet another batch of boogers on the bathroom wall. How many times must we have
I would
this
like to establish, I believe of all the facts, whether or not Gus was 13 or 14 isn't as important, but I will agree that one Facebook status seems to be, there's a large time period that the booger wall was happening, not just that day of the Facebook post. But
Your Honor,
Gus,
if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Well, first of all, to back up the claims of the Facebook post here, I would like to submit another Facebook post from my mother into the chat right now that is dated... Oh, here, let's do one more. That is dated one day after. February 28th, 2009, Deb Johnson is disappointed in all the denial at the Booger meeting last night. We expect honesty and accountability, not perfect behavior. So, for the record, Sven indicated there was a single post. I do have 2 posts about this matter. And also, I don't see how me rounding up should be a mark against my character. I clearly just wanted to establish that a very slight rounding of numbers, be it height or age, is commonplace in our household and shouldn't be penalized.
I would agree that's semantics. Semantics. I will
Thank you,
also
Your
say,
Honor.
with this new piece of information, that I just want to share to the jury and audience that it seems like this is not the first booger wall trial, according to that status, which means whoever is found guilty today has had a serial amount of booger lying, and they will be punished extra because I have learned this new information. I believe we had a question from Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes. Hello, Honor Burback. I do have a question. It was more in regards to the first one. She said, Mother Johnson said, how many times do we have to have this conversation? I would just like to know, I didn't realize that this was a thing that had been brought up by the Johnson's mother over and over and continued to happen. Is that, so are we led to believe that this was brought to the children's attention multiple times, hey, stop doing this, and it continued on happening?
Yes, from all the information that was given during the last podcast and what Mrs. Johnson seemed to have said, I would say yeah, but I would allow the Johnson boys to just a quick yes or no. Yes, was it told to all the boys to stop doing Booger Wall in the midst of Booger Wall?
Yes from Gus.
Yes from Thor. Yes from Sven, I think.
Thank you for your answers. Gus, I believe, again, as the primary suspect, I would like to ask first Gus and then Thor. Would you refute the claims, Gus, that you were not only a booger wiper, but a booger flicker at the age of 5?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'm very glad that you brought that up because I think that it is incredibly important that we pay attention to the details in these claims here. I am not denying the fact that when I was 5, I may or may not have flicked boogers. In terms of personal preference, from an age long ago, I do not currently still do it. I remembered that if and when I picked up my nose, because let's all face it, everybody picks their nose, okay? We're all human. It happens. The boogers need to go somewhere. I do remember when I was a kid that sometimes I had flicked boogers. To me, personally, it is disgusting to wipe them on surfaces. I'd rather just get them out, or rather, I would just rather get them out of my sight as opposed to committing a premeditated, malicious, if I may, wiping on a commonplace wall. And furthermore, I would like to bring up a very clearly overlooked part of Mrs. Johnson's testimonial here. Did she not say that she already had confirmation that Thor wiped boogers on the bunk bed? How is this not a more important detail?
Objection. That is the next form of questioning. Please do not turn this into a kangaroo court. Thor Johnson, I would like you to refute or just deny or agree to the claims that you were a booger wiper on your bunk bed wood.
Okay, yes, I will agree to the claims that I was a booger wiper. Wow. However, as Gus said, we all pick our nose. It all has to go somewhere. That just so happened to be... This board here was my sole booger holder. I never would put it anywhere else. Once in a while, I would maybe stick one on my sock, but that was about it. It would just get lost in the carpet fibers. No big deal. Never once did I pick my nose and think to myself, our white walls, which, by the way, I believe is an important part to add. We have entirely white walls, so it is very glaring evidence. Never did I once think, I'm going to take this booger and put it on my white walls. I would argue that with the brown trim and varnish that was on our bunk bed, it made for a better concealed surface for me to put them, and therefore a more thoughtful place for me to put them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. First, I want to add that I believe it's been 3 minutes since, so if not, that's fine. But Mr. Gooden had a question. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
It's been 3 minutes.
It was another question. I think I'll ask both. But on the topic of Thor, what you just said, I just want you to confirm. So you're trying to make the argument, in addition to that the color better conceals it, also that maybe you wouldn't have enough boogers left in your nose to add to the bathroom wall, considering that you use so many on the bunk bed. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
I would say that's a very accurate statement. Thank you, Mr. Gooden, because that was my sole place, other than, as I was saying, my sock, perhaps, to put my boogers. Because, I pretty much just got them all out of my system in that one location. So, yes, thank you for that question.
Thank you. And I did actually have another question that I was going to ask earlier, if I can ask that now. I just want to call into question the validity of this evidence that Gus has put forth. This Facebook post allegedly posted by their mother. We know her name is Deb Johnson, and yet for some reason you've blacked out the name, and I'm supposed to just believe that that's from your mother. I did some Googling, and I actually found Howie Mandel posted the same thing on his public Facebook page.
Oh, no.
On the same day. And so what I think is that you found this online and you colored it out, and now you're trying to use it as evidence against your mom. What say you?
What's the goal?
Gus, I will add very quickly, Gus, could you provide evidence that Deb Johnson was the one that posted that status in 2009 and not America's Got Talent and Deal or No Deal host Howie Mandel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Boy, this poses a difficult challenge to my defense. But I would like to add, upon glancing at the evidence that Mr. Gooden has submitted, clearly, from a visual standpoint, it is obviously not photoshopped. There's a clear consistency in both the font choice as well as the general size of the profile picture. I'm not calling that into question, but being an avid, voracious consumer of everything Deal or No Deal, I will add that I happen to know personally that Howie Mandel is very publicly a lifelong germaphobe, and I can't imagine that he would have picked his nose, let alone wiped it on a communal area without doing a cleaner option. I think
so
that's
Mr.
enough
Johnson,
to underwrite.
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson. So what you're saying is that you cannot prove that post was posted by Howie Mandel versus your mother. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
What you're hearing from me is that this is somehow...
It's a simple yes or no question, Mr. Johnson.
I don't know how Mr. Gooden did it,
report.
but he has clearly fabricated this piece of evidence that he's admitted.
If you cannot give sufficient proof against his claims, then we cannot move forward in you defending it. Do you have proof?
I can't prove it. I cannot.
Okay, so Howie Mandel said it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the jury currently? Nothing currently? Or okay, Danny, you got one. Got it. Let's hear it. Or Mr. Gonzalez, apologies.
Yes, I believe that we've heard from two of the Johnson brothers about what they did with their boogers, and as Gus said, everyone picks their nose. So we know that Gus used to flick them, and Thor used to put them on his bed. I don't know if we've heard from Sven what exactly he did with his boogers when he did definitely pick his nose.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, for raising this question. I don't know if Thor and I somehow communicated this over our years of living together, but I was surprised to hear that Thor has a similar tactic. If he has a booger that needs to be taken care of or is, dangling, the best place for it is clearly on the inside of your sock. Just discreetly wipe it down there. That's what I do with my boogers if I have to take care of one in an emergency situation.
I would like to add maybe a bit of personal, maybe this is a personal info from the judge, but I would argue that a tissue is the best place for a booger rather than the inside of your sock. But you may continue.
I'm talking strictly out and about, not in the house. If I'm in the house, obviously a tissue and then a quick successive hand wash is the best way
Let
for
the
dealing
record
with
show I was referring to in the house because that is where the crime took place.
In the house, I would not pick my nose in the house and dispose of the booger anywhere other than a tissue. It's just I would not do that. And there's been no record of me doing this over the years.
I'm seeing some reactions from especially Gus, but maybe Thor. I would call in the other Johnson brothers, who I would say are experts of living with Sven Johnson. Do you have any proof or even just any recollection of Sven not doing what he's saying?
If I may, Mr. Burbeck, the Honorable Judge Burbeck here.
You may.
Thank you, sir. Sexy sir. I have two statements I'd like to make.
Sustain.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm sustaining all episode long. Mr. Johnson, Sven Johnson, has indicated in the past that he is a responsible disposer of all human-related wastes.
Objection! I know where he's going with this.
I would like to let him continue.
Please.
First.
Allow me to continue. And I know Sven knows that I know where I'm going with this, and I would just like to say again in that previous episode of the Gus and Eddy podcast, Sven has mentioned that when he was a kid, he used to take a Swiss Army knife and cut chunks of his hair off before a nap every day and hide it behind a framed photo.
I would give an objection really quick for anybody who didn't hear the episode in the jury. I believe that Gus is trying, or Mr. Johnson is trying to paint Sven as the one that does weird shit in their house. I would like to call back to the podcast when I asked if there was a gas leak in their home, because all of them did weird shit. They ate ladybugs. They smeared boogers. Gus, I believe, pissed in his drawer. So I will not have Gus or Sven's character made as the weird kid that leaves hair around. All three of you are the weird kid.
All right, Your Honor.
I would like.
I will redact my statement, Your Honor. But if I may make one final statement before you move on to the other boys, please.
Yes, go for it.
Thank you, sir. I don't want to get too off topic here, but I think it's vitally important that I clarify something that Mr. Thor Johnson had said not but 8 minutes before. Thor has stated that he does not wipe boogers on surfaces that are easily visible. He said, if I recall correctly, that he didn't wipe boogers on a white wall because boogers would have showed up against the white. Yet, 5 seconds later, Thor indicated that one of his main means of wiping boogers was on his sock. Now, I know for a fact that I have a mother that is thrifty, she's budget savvy, and we have never had anything other than almost entirely pure white, just generic Hanes socks in our household. Meaning, Thor was knowingly wiping boogers on white, visible surfaces. And if you'll pay attention to his second statement where he said, you'll notice that the boogers I wiped on the wood were matching with the grain and the varnish of the color of the wood.
This is off
Does
topic.
this sound,
This is
sir,
off topic.
please, let me finish. Does
Let
this
me
sound,
talk. Let me
does
address
this
the question
sound
you raised
like a thought?
Sven, Mr.
Please,
Johnson,
Sven.
I would allow him to finish, and after that, I will give Thor the floor. You're
right,
not
thank you.
under
Thank
questioning
you.
right now.
Thor's rationale for wiping boogers in a, quote, camouflaged area seems to be a thought that you'd have before you wipe the booger, not after the fact. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think it's vitally important that we don't forget the fact that Thor is now on the record as an established wiper of boogers. Yes, I might have been a suspect for a flicker of boogers, but Thor has wiped boogers on surfaces and seems to be lying about it. That's all I have, Your Honor.
That is completely out of the question and is very unfair. What I would like to add to the point of sticking it on my sock, I would put it on the inside of my sock. We've always been tube sock boys. We've always had our long, tall socks. So as you can see here, I'm wearing them right now. These are not the socks in question, but these are a similar variety. And I had plenty of space, as you can see, to line my shins and ankle area with all of the boogers I could have ever wanted.
Your Honor, I need to address
Okay,
something
well,
before it gets way too far off
Hold on.
topic.
First, I would like to say, well, thank you, Thor, Mr. Johnson, for sharing that. I would like to say on behalf of the jury and the audience, gross. Sven, it seems like you have some kind of burning statement you'd like to share.
I never got to respond to Gus's original statement about me with the hair. Yes, I admitted in the previous podcast episode about me cutting hair. I cut a little bit of my hair with a Swiss Army knife, and I put it behind the lazy boy before nap time. That's it. Gus, I never claimed to be the most responsible depositor of human remains, like you said, or I can't remember how you said it even anymore. He's trying to gaslight me for something he knows I did about something that I didn't.
It cut out a
That's
bit,
all I have to
but
say.
I thank you, Mr. Johnson. I would like to now throw to the jury for a bit. It seems like we've got a lot of evidence and we've got a lot of statements and replies. I'd like to just get the general vibe. Mr. Films, you've been very silent during it. I would just like to hear maybe any of your thoughts or questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I have a question for Sven and Thor. We've heard from Mrs. Johnson a rather bold claim regarding Gustav that he tended to have a very creative, quote-unquote, memory / recollection of things. He would be absent-minded. And I just wanted to hear from the other two Johnson brothers if you had any other stories that would kind of, collaborate with what she was saying.
Well, Mr. Films, I'm very glad that you had asked that question, as I have come prepared for this very occurrence. In front of you, people who are familiar with the podcast may know what this book is. I will show it to the jury.
Your Honor, objection.
Objection. Mr. Johnson, this is valid to the claims that your mother made. I will allow it.
Thank you very much, the honorable, very sexually mustachioed man, might I add.
Sustained.
So here we have Seed Soil Son, a book in which Gus claimed he was a child actor and a child model in. Thor, what year was that book published? Let's see. Let's take a look here.
Well, first I want to share, Mr. Johnson did not claim he was in Seed Soil Son. He claimed he was in a book by the same author, Chris Peterson, called Extra Cheese, Please, Mozzarella's Journey from Cow to Pizza. But
my apologies.
Continue.
Yes. Nevertheless, my point stands. Gus has to or tends to have a very fabricated imagination, and I think that Gus, in your heart, I believe that you never did Booger Wall, but at the same time, as we can see with all these lies that he tells himself, he generally just starts to tell them to himself enough that he believes them. So in the case of the book, he told himself years and years that he was in this book, Extra Cheese Please, but as it turned out to be the case, he was not.
In fact, what year was Extra Cheese Please published? Might I ask? Nobody knows.
I know that answer.
1994.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm not calling
we
that
can
into
see-
question at all.
We can see the imagination that he clearly has on himself. He thinks he was in a book that was not even the book was published before he was born. How could he be in that book? What an imaginative mind he has. Excuse my language.
Your Honor, please, if I may respond.
I would allow you to respond, yes.
Thank you. As any regular watcher of the Gus and Eddy podcast knows, I think that it was almost clearly defined after the whole book debacle, the Chris Peterson gate, that it was not my malicious or my misremembering of the situation. Sorry, I said malicious, I meant malice. Or misremembering of the situation that was the issue here. It was clearly my mom who had gaslit me from a young age into believing I was in the book. Otherwise, why would I have come up with that information on my own?
Gaslighting. You're the one talking about gaslighting.
I believe, well, I would have to say, and I'm sorry, I'm just want to clear up the facts for everybody. This is not against you, Mr. Johnson. I'm just clearing it up. That we did, in the sequel episode of the Extra Cheese Please Gus and Eddy podcast edition, your mother said she never told you were in a book. Now, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm not saying she didn't, but I'm saying your mother's testimony is that she didn't tell you were in the book. And your brothers are saying you weren't in the book. And I just have to clear up that you weren't in the book and said that you were. This is all the evidence that we have. Maybe she was lying. Maybe it was a conspiracy from your entire family. But the evidence that's laid out before us is that you thought you were in that book, and you absolutely weren't. And I need that to be known. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson.
That is fair. And I would just, as the final mini statement, say that I have maintained from the beginning of the debacle that I introduced, not that I said, hey, I was in a book. I said, my mom told me I was in a book. Just want to get that out.
I would like to. That is very fair. Now, I believe much earlier, Mr. Christensen had a question. I don't know if you still have it, if you have any new questions, but I would like to throw to you if you have anything.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Also, I enjoy your Yankee with brim. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. You're very sweet. No, it wasn't a question. It was more so a reaction. Obviously, we don't want this to be a kangaroo court. But a while back when Mr. Gooden brought up the piece of information about Howie Mandel on Facebook, I want to say that at the time, and it was very hard to keep myself from reacting, and I'm paraphrasing, I wanted to say, yo, but I wanted your permission, but I just wanted to add that on record that you could see it in my eyes. That was my reaction. That's all I have.
Absolutely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I believe, Mr. Gooden, you had another question?
That was like 10 minutes ago. I forgot what it was going to be.
Okay, that's fine. I would like to also throw to Mr. Nestor. Do you have any other questions before we proceed?
No, I also forgot my question. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. So I would like to now throw first to Sven Johnson and then to Gus. I believe both of them have claimed. Actually, I'm sure all three of you do. But now is the time to present your final chunk of evidence. This is not a closing statement, but any evidence you've been holding on to that you believe is damning, it's time to hear it. Now, Gus, you did just defend yourself, and Sven was accusing you, so I'd like to throw to Thor because we didn't hear from him much in the last couple of minutes. Thor, do you have any extra evidence that you'd like to share?
I do have some evidence, and I will be pasting it in the Discord here in one moment. It is a YouTube video link. So I would encourage that we would be able to watch that here.
Okay, I believe if my brother, the Honorable Anthony Burback, would like to turn that into a watch together link that we can all click on, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
now,
again,
Thor, as Tony does that, I will throw to Sven to see if he has any evidence he's been holding on to.
Your Honor, I do not have any further evidence beyond my closing statement, which I will save for a moment, but I believe everything is on the table at this point, at least from my perspective. So it's up to the jury, and I will deliver my closing statement shortly when the time comes for that. But
absolutely,
besides
thank
that,
you,
I
Mr.
have no
Johnson.
further evidence. Yep.
As the Watch Together link gets prepared, Gus, I will allow you to drop any evidence. Actually, it seems that the Watch Together link is there. If everyone could click on that link, and we could watch this video together at the same time, we will allow Your Honorable Anthony Burback to play it. So we'll wait till everyone's in the room, and we'll cut out any middle time in between. Okay, we seem to all be in then. Tony, if you would like to play it, I would like to tell the audience that the video seems to be from Gus Johnson's YouTube channel, and it is called Caught Booger Handed. Tony, if you could play the video.
I panicked.
All right, I would like to now throw to Thor first to explain the evidence that you've just dropped, and then I would like to throw to Mr. Gus Johnson to defend himself. So, Thor, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, as you can see in that video, it appears that there is a man. Gus is the man in question, and he looks around to check to make sure that no one is looking. And although it has been previously established in these proceedings that Gus is a booger picker, I just thought it was important to note that he was very anxious and very cautious to make sure that no one was looking at him. And then he proceeds to pick his nose, and upon his picking of the nose, he discovers that in fact he has been found out by someone else in the library. And upon this revelation, he looks at him, and obviously this is a fictionalized account, but it shows that Gus is willing to go to any measures to keep people quiet about his booger tendencies and habits. So in the video, he is shown strangling, possibly even strangulation to death, of the man and taking him out. So I would just like to point that Gus has in the past shown some malicious attitudes towards those that have called him on his booger picking ways.
Your Honor,
Gus
my colleague
Johnson,
here
I would
has
like
a
to give
very
you the floor.
colorful he's a very colorful imagination. This is beyond ridiculous. This is clearly a work of professional fiction that I cultivated between the years of 2016 and perhaps late 2017. It is purely meant for entertainment value. It bears no bearing towards my personal preferences, the way I conduct myself. It is strictly an act of fiction. I don't see that it has anything of value to add to this investigation, and frankly, it seems like Thor has done a very repetitive job of trying to throw in so much just cannon fodder around his arguments to distract us from the fact that he is a clear established booger wiper who has intent, who is wiping boogers on camouflage surfaces. This is just a ridiculous point.
I would like to add very quickly, for both of you. Well, first, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, I cannot accept this as evidence. If I did, it's a piece of entertainment, and if I did, I would have to admit that this is a kangaroo court, and I will not do that in my courtroom. So what we're going to do, I would like to also state, though, Gus, that your mother also mentioned that you were a booger flicker, and I believe a wiper as well in your room when you were 5. So I don't want this.
She did not say that. She did not say that. She said I was the flickering culprit. At the age 5, there was boogers across the room from where I was sleeping at that time. Not in any sense of a pattern. She determined that I had flicked boogers.
Okay, I could be mishearing because I thought she said that it was also wiped on your walls, but I could be wrong if she did not say that. If nobody has recollection of it, I apologize.
I have recollection of it.
Of course he does, Your Honor. Very convenient.
Jurors, thumbs up or thumbs down if you remember Gus's mom saying something of that sort, of him wiping boogers when he was younger.
I'm not sure.
Specifically wiping.
Okay, I'm seeing thumbs down all over. Then apologies. Sven, how dare you in my court? I apologize to you, Mr. Johnson. I do not want to mischaracterize you as a booger wiper. I heard that wrong. So now I want to throw to Mr. Nestor. It seems that he has a question.
Thank you, Your Honor. The mother, when she came in, she talked about how Sven Johnson did not use the boys' bathroom due to an overflow in the toilet. And I would just like to ask if any of you recall at what time Sven was no longer using said bathroom, and if the booger wall persisted through that time.
Your Honor, I think I'm the best suited to weigh in on this, as I would have been the oldest given this time.
It was me. It was me. Your Honor, may I talk about this?
I believe if we're calling into question who's not using the bathroom, that person must be asked first.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You have the floor.
So, when I was very young, I had a mishap. Used too much toilet paper. I overflowed the toilet a couple times, as my mom illustrated. That scarred me. It was scarring because my mom was panicked. She came up and I didn't know what to say to my mom other than, Mom, Mom, Mom. She comes up the stairs, sees there's water running down the floor. It was a traumatic experience for me because we had no idea what to do. After, I would only use the most powerful toilet in any building. And that happened to be my parents' bathroom. They had the most powerful toilet. So I would only ever use that bathroom since about age 5, I want to say. I was very young.
5 to what? Age 5 to when?
5, but honestly, still, nowadays, it just keeps going for me. I just use the most powerful toilet. It's just
I would like to ask, because Gus, I know you have a reply to that, but first, for the validity of all the Johnsons, I would say that your mother did say that was true. I would like to hear from Thor and then Gus for what you think, if those claims are true or not.
Okay, yes. Thank you, Your Honorable Judge.
Sustained.
That is bullcrap. Pardon my language. But Sven, although he was very anxious about toilets, he did not use my parents' bathroom and still has probably not used their bathroom for, number 2, in likely 10 years if I had to guess. So,
No. That is not what we are questioning. I do not still use that. We have since gotten a new toilet in the past 5 years, and I've been using that one. It's a new toilet in the booger wall bathroom.
Mr. Johnson, I believe I did just ask you how long you've been doing it, and you did say to this day. So I want to acknowledge
I've been using the most powerful toilet to this day, yes.
I was asking,
and that is now
maybe
currently.
You misunderstood the question, but I was asking about using your parents' bathroom, not the most powerful toilet.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, then I use
Mr. Gus Johnson. I would give him the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for pointing out yet another inconsistency in a very long line of inconsistencies that Mr. Sven Johnson has provided today during the trial. So thank you for shedding light on that. Further, I might add, again, being the eldest of the Johnson kids during this situation, that I'm very aware of the situation. What Sven described initially was accurate. He clogged the toilet, it overflowed. My mom, as she has sometimes done in the past, overreacted in a way that tended to scare Sven. Nothing physical, but the act of having your mom panicking carry towels in to wipe up your little poop water off the floor is very scarring for a young child. Sven is telling the truth there. As Thor pointed out, I don't think anybody has seen Sven use my mom and dad's bathroom for the better part of 10 years. That just is not accurate at all. And I distinctly remember...
That's not what I said.
Completely false.
Completely false. And I distinctly remember in the weeks, months, and years after the toilet overflow incident that it was a constant struggle to have Sven be able to use his bathroom again. And I do remember situations of my mom encouraging a bit firmly to say, Sven, just use your damn bathroom. It's not going to overflow. It's fine.
Did not happen. Did not use that bathroom.
Absolutely.
And I did not say that I've been using my parents' bathroom for the past 10 years.
I will say with this piece of evidence, it seems that there are two conflicting stories with Sven and his mother and Thor and Gus. I don't think we're going to find an answer here. So I want to throw out to everybody, all the jurors. I believe, Mr. Gonzalez, you had a question, but I want to say if you're a part of the jury, before the closing statements, if you have a burning question that needs to be asked before these wonderful men and one guilty man makes their statement, I would put a 1 in the chat and we will get to you. I will start with Mr. Gonzalez because he had a question about 5 minutes ago. Hopefully you remember it.
Yes, I actually have 2 questions now. Thank you, Mr. Burback. My first question
I would ask really quickly, sorry, Mr. Gonzalez, that keep the answers brief, Johnson boys. We're trying to get through this. Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. This first question is actually for Jakey. Earlier you said that you were like, yo. I just wanted to ask, was that like a yo or like yo?
So it was trying to go back to how if Drew Gooden could actually reveal the piece of info about Howie once again, the natural reaction might actually come from me if we kind of.
Mr. Gooden, can you repeat your reveal? Mr. Gooden?
Well, I sent it again in the chat. Is that what you meant?
Oh,
or
just,
do you want me to
just say it.
Say it all again?
If I hear it, it might come
just
back
maybe
to me
a sentence.
in the moment.
All right. Gus Jones. All right, where did I start? So Gus's mom, which is all of your... It's
okay, Drew. It's okay. I
wasn't ready for this.
Does anyone know what was said before Drew said this? This might help him.
Yeah. Then I'll have my natural reaction.
Gus provided a photograph of my mom's Facebook post saying that discovered yet another batch of boogers on the bathroom wall. How many times do we have to have this conversation? He showed the Facebook post, except he blurred out my mom's name on the Facebook post.
That's right. Basically, my point, Jake, so you can react to this once more. Make sure you're listening. My point was that we all know who it is, so why blur out the name in the first place? And doing some Googling, I actually very quickly uncovered this very real image from Howie Mandel's personal Facebook page. He posted this on the same day in question, and I think it could not be used as evidence because it clearly was not.
That was it.
Mr. Gonzalez, does that answer your question?
Sounds right.
Yes, and then I have a separate question for Sven. You mentioned earlier that for as long as or ever since you clogged that toilet, you have always pooped in the most powerful toilet in any building. I was just wondering, how do you go about finding the most powerful toilet in any building that you're in?
That's the thing. Is since this was such a traumatic experience, I would limit my pooping to only houses that I was familiar with, being my grandparents' house or mine. Very rarely would I poop in a public restroom. But public restrooms generally are a standard strength for the toilet flush. So,
Mr. Johnson, just as a short, quick answer, I would like to ask really quick, which toilet in your grandparents' house was the most powerful toilet?
My grandmother's toilet in her bathroom.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. I would like to throw to Mr. Nestor. He has a question.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Apologies if this information was already shared, but I would like to ask, at what age were all of the Johnson boys when the Booger Wall incidents ceased?
I would like a clear repeat of that. We'll go oldest to youngest. Please just say your age at that time.
13 3/4. I rounded up to 14.
Okay, well then, if you're rounding up, I was 10.
I was
Sven, just please say your age. Please say your age.
9 3/4.
6 11/12.
Does that answer your question sufficiently, Mr. Nestor?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay. I would ask, before the closing statements, does anyone have any final questions for the defendants before you hear their statements and make a decision? It sounds like Mr. Gooden has a question.
Well, it's not so much a question so much as it is my closing statement and just how I feel about this case as a whole.
You'll be able to say that when the jurors discuss as well. But I will be like to say it in the courtroom. Go ahead.
I'll withhold then. I appreciate that. Thank you, Your Honor.
We will have a jury discussion when we decide after their closing statements. They will step out into the hallway chat and we will decide. I won't, but the jury will decide. So, does anybody have any last statement or question before we get to the closing statements of Johnson v. Johnson v. Johnson, Booger Wall, the trial of the century? Seems like Mr. Christensen has a question. Go for it.
Before, thank you, Your Honor. Before me and my fellow jurors analyze all of the evidence and come to a conclusion, I would like to give one last opportunity to all three of the Johnson boys to just come clean. That if you don't want to face the judgment and if you want to just have a clear conscience, I think I see Ethan, Danny, Mr. Films all nodding. I would like to give you that opportunity now if you want to go to heaven and not heck. Thank you, Your Honor.
The floor is for whichever is the guilty party. You can come clean if you'd like. Would any of you like to come clean? What? Doesn't sound like it. I will say the sentencing, no matter what it is, will have to be followed. So if you, before your closing statements, I'll share this after. Why don't we get to the closing statements? We'll go oldest to youngest. Thor, let's hear your closing statement.
I would like to point out that's not oldest to youngest, but at the same time...
I meant to say youngest to oldest. I will now go oldest to youngest because Thor was kind of a dick there. Gus,
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you so much for joining in for this. I just want to reiterate a few key, crucial points that were brought up in this trial, and I'm sure that all of these points together will indicate not a clear Booger Wall culprit, but will undoubtedly absolve me from consideration. Let's reiterate. I was nearly 14 years old when this crime occurred. Sven was inconsistent in his description of where the boogers even were. Thor is on record as being a known booger wiper. He's acknowledged it himself. My mom has acknowledged it. There's no question. Yes, perhaps when I was younger than when Thor was at that time, I may or may not have flicked some boogers across the room. I have never been a booger wiper. Thor is a booger wiper. This is the most important piece to remember during your consideration. And again, I just was way too goddamn old to do this. So I think that without a doubt in your minds, I cannot be the culprit in this situation, and I'm sure that you'll see it that way as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Sven Johnson, please prepare your closing statement and give it to everybody.
All right, my closing statement. If anything, Gus's own attack worked against him because, if anything, my inconsistency with the relation of the boogers and like their pattern, it proves my innocence because I don't know where they were. I didn't do it. Gus seems to know exactly where the boogers were. Gus knew this whole thing. He had it all planned out. And as he clearly demonstrated himself, he has a very imaginative brain. He likes to make stuff up. And just the fact that I didn't use that bathroom. I know we got confused with the questioning, like which is the most powerful toilet, you know? I just didn't use that bathroom ever, especially not for number 2. I just wouldn't do it. And I didn't do it. That is my closing statement. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm exempt from the Booger Wall case. And my mom even said it herself.
Thank you, Mr. Sven Johnson. Thor, we'd like to hear your closing statement.
Okay, I'm going to keep this short because I know you're busy men. I would just like to point back to an earlier point in the case where I was discussing that I had my 2 spots where I put my boogers. Now, as you may have noticed, they were both very discreet spots with both the varnish of the wood matching the color of my boogers and the inside of my socks where no one would discover them. So I would just like to say that a white wall would be completely out of character and really not on brand for me to do. I was very cunning and I was very secretive about my booger hiding ways. Although I was an admitted wiper, I would not put them in plain sight at all. And I would like to use that fact to just let you know that I am innocent, in fact. So thank you.
Okay, we've heard our closing statements. I would now ask the defendants to move to the hallway server and remain there until I tell you it's all right. The jury needs to discuss, and whatever sentencing happens, even if you believe that you weren't guilty, no matter what you say, whatever the jury decides here is who is guilty and who will have to follow the sentencing no matter what. Can I get verbal agreement from all of the Johnson boys?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, that's fair, yes.
Okay, please step out into the hallway.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can we expect a text message when you're ready?
You will see it in the Discord chat.
Thank you, sir.
You just actually move your account into the hallway of the chat, Gus. Don't walk into the hallway.
I don't think he can hear you.
Gus walked away.
Oh, no.
Sven and Thor, can you move to the hallway of the hallway server of the chat room?
Okay.
Thor
is still in here. He can still be listening. There we go. Thor left.
Thor is
okay. I'm gonna.
Wow.
He went into the hallway.
Well, it won't kick him from the server, right?
Please, Your Honor.
Oh wait, this would kick him from the server. Okay, Gus. I don't know. Just mute him, I guess.
Can you deafen him?
Where would that be? Server
just
deafen?
right
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you're
Okay.
good.
Oh yeah.
Gus is now
Okay.
deafened
Great.
and also muted just in case, and I'll also disable video for him. so
Also,
not
he's
in-
dead.
All right.
Thank you.
Also, I right-click killed him. All right.
Great.
Now, I think before we get any votes in, if you guys want to just have any discussion, I'll be here for it. But I do not want to sway anyone in any direction toward anyone. So I'll be here to clear up any information if people don't remember it. But if any discussion would like to be had about who you think is guilty, let's hear it.
May I
Yeah.
start off this conversation with something that was just brought up
Yeah,
by Thor,
yeah.
if that's okay with the rest of the jury.
Go for it.
In Thor's closing statement, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said that I was very secretive about where I put my boogers. And
that too.
though previously he had stated that he would not wipe his boogers on a white wall where it would stick out, the fact that he himself said that he was secretive about where he put his boogers, and also obviously said that he did regularly pick his nose, I think is pretty damning evidence.
I would agree. I would,
in my opinion.
going off of that, I would say that my general, and I'm not made up. This is why we got to discuss, because I don't even know exactly who I think. But if I'm being 100% honest, right now my brain says Thor, but my gut says Gus, and I don't know exactly why, but that's how it feels.
I would like to share. Sorry, I'll just really quick, Drew, right after. Again, I do not want to sway anyone. I will say, I'll add two pieces to keep it even, but I wanted to say in the closing statement, I think things got confused. I do want to share, again, the evidence that Thor was established as a booger wiper and not Gus as a child, but their mother did say as an adult in the situation that he was her primary suspect. And I feel like everyone kind of forgot that during the trial, and I'm not moving anything toward Gus because I don't know how I feel on who it is. I'm just saying I feel like that information was lost way earlier. Right. But go ahead. Drew.
Right. Well, on those notes, since we do have three possible culprits here, I would like to put forth the notion of us going ahead and eliminating Sven from contention, because I believe we are all in agreement it's either Gus or Thor.
Yes. I have something to bring up on that on that subject.
Well, Danny, yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Danny.
From Gus's mom's Facebook posts, and from how they all talked about it, they made it seem like all three of them were part of these family meetings where Gus's mom was trying to get out of them who was doing it. If Sven wasn't using that bathroom, why would he be a part of those family meetings? That was the question I was going to ask towards the end, but I never got it out. But I feel like he was involved in those meetings, and I'm just wondering why he would have been if it was well established that he didn't use that bathroom.
Yeah, I wish I had asked more because I kind of went with a little bit more of a bit like there was a trial before, and I didn't really get more information on whether or not who was at the meetings or anything. So yeah, I just
I
don't
know. I didn't even think of
there
that. That would have been a good question.
Drew, you raising your hand?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question and one that is worth finding an answer to. But just viewing the case from an overall perspective, going into this, I knew that whoever was responsible is obviously a very barbaric person. The fact that they're sitting on the toilet next to presumably an ample supply of toilet paper, enough for them to use for their own ass a few minutes later, they choose to ignore that and instead wipe their booger on the wall. The culprit is a savage, all right? The culprit is not a little bitch who, in this case, Sven's argument was pretty much that he was a little bitch. He said that he was so scared of the toilet for years that he would only poop in powerful toilets. Right. And this is someone we're supposed to believe has the psyche to be capable of wiping boogers on a wall. I just don't believe it. So I think we can safely narrow it down to Gus and Thor.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so that's an agree from every juror. I obviously do not have a vote, so it seems like in your discussion, Sven is now eliminated. It is Thor v. Gus.
Yes, that is true.
Does anyone have any specific who they think it is more? Anything you want to discuss about it? Okay, let's hear it.
So in my notes, I have Gus is defensive and reaching.
That's what. Yep.
And I wish I had a more clear example of that, but I wouldn't write it down if I didn't think it was backed up with some kind of evidence. Also, the YouTube video that was presented of Gus in the library doing that heinous act was very oddly specific. Why on earth would you make an entire comedy sketch about picking your nose, about the act of picking one's nose, unless you had a lot of experience in that field, right? So I think that's a bit of a red flag. Also, just the fact that he is his mother's prime suspect. Who knows, boys better than their mom.
Yep.
Mama knows
right?
best.
Who knows? Mom knows best.
To add on to that,
I just want to say
I was really quick.
No. It was really quick.
I was gonna say with the video, really.
It's
quick.
Delayed. Sorry. No. Sorry, it was delayed. Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to say something too.
On the like memes bits aside, did you really find that Howie Mandel had those Facebook posts? Like, is it basically proven that Gus like photoshopped that shit? Or just crossed it? Okay, because I want to make sure, because if he had actually faked those, that's like damning of like, yeah, he's crazy defensive. Like.
No, it was just
a funny bit.
I just thought it was funny for him to say a post from Deb Johnson, say her name, we know what she looks like, but also blurred out her name as if he's hiding something.
I was surprised that Gus couldn't find the original screenshots.
Yeah, no, this is why, and the smile on his face, I thought that he was like, shit, they caught me type thing, which is why my heart is kind of like, I think it was Gus. So that's really good for me, actually, that maybe I'm not so sure that it's, I don't know who it is.
I will say Gus was to your point, Jack, Gus was the most defensive out of everybody, which... Yes, you're supposed to defend yourself. Sure, this is court, but also like tone it down a notch.
Yeah,
yeah. It's off-putting.
He's acting in a way, in not a professional manner, where he's like, "Oh, are you kidding me? This is unbelievable! Like, this is ridiculous." And that's something that makes me a little bit worried, as well as the evidence that Deborah brought to the table, that Gus does have a history with boogers, whether it be flicking or whatever.
I would like to be professional as a judge and strike that I don't want it. It is definitely just flicking and not wiping. I somehow made that up and entered it in. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
True. Whether it's flicking, whatever happened, he does have a history with spreading boogers where they shouldn't be spread, where there could be
he could have flicked them at the wall. We're forgetting that a lot of boogers are very sticky, and it, especially at that close range, if you're just like, do that, maybe he's just got the muscle memory of putting it on the wall. Also, to the point of him being more defensive, it might just be a front, but Sven and especially Thor felt way more relaxed and prepared. I don't know if it was just the lavish suit he had and his like binder tight beat and the shit he pulled out, but I don't know, I'm easily persuaded, but that definitely helped Thor's case.
I think Sven and Thor both have pretty good alibis. Sven didn't use that bathroom, and Thor had another place that he put his boogers. They both he put them in his bed and in his socks, both very private places. It seems like he didn't want them out in the open. That there were two spaces that only he could see. Gus is the only one whose boogers in his adolescence are unaccounted for. He used to flick boogers when he was 4 to 5. Where did they start going after that?
I finally remember my big reaching point. It was when Gus was saying, like, let the record show he was hiding boogers in his socks. A very white background. Irrelevant. No comparison.
You can still hide them in a sock.
But, I don't know. That one...
You can hide... Right. You're not putting them on display. That was a very poor argument.
They're not like tights.
I will say what I found interesting, again, is not a toward anybody, but and I think this is the really great thing about Mrs. Johnson is that she still brought in some kind of evidence on everybody. She had a suspect where she knew she did it, but she decided to bring the wood from Thor's bunk bed to show, like, hey, look, he does that. But it was actually super helpful, I think, to the whole trial.
I know. I also love that she was posting about it on Facebook, that she had to sit her kids down and be like, who's
shaming your kids online?
On in that? Like, Eddie said it best or better than anyone, that you're just
gas
like,
leak,
was there a
man.
gas leak in your house? Like, I didn't want to say it at the time because obviously we're staying on subject, but who the fuck cuts their hair and puts it behind a fucking painting specifically before a nap, too? Like, what kind of behavior is that?
I would like to also add, if you didn't hear me during it, there was another instance where one of the three of them, where their vent on the ground in the winter was killing ladybugs around the vent, and they were eating them.
Can we just throw them all in jail, like regardless of whether they did Booger Wall or not? Can we just send them all to?
These children are feral.
I'll wait till after.
Please continue, guys. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Hold for a moment. Yep. So
sorry.
I will say in the time that we wait for Mr. Films, do you guys think we should even see if the vote is unanimous without him beforehand? Should we? Yeah. Do you guys want to see without him if the vote is unanimous, and then when he comes in, let's see.
Well, one thing I will say against Thor is that what was he, like 5 or 6 at the time when Booger Wall stopped?
I believe he was 6 years old.
His memory of that, I don't imagine to be particularly vivid. So if he did Booger Wall, I could easily, one, as a 6-year-old, you're not really paying attention to what you're doing with your boogers or what you're doing at all. You're not making a ton of memories back then. And so I think that his memory of Booger Wall, it might be a little flaky because he was very, very young at that point. So he might have done it and not even realized, you know?
That's a good point.
That's a good point. On the topic of age, though, it does work in Gus's favor that he is, as he puts it, so much older than the age that the culprit should be. But I wouldn't put it past him to have done it anyway, using that as an excuse, knowing he has 2 younger brothers to pin it on. I have a younger brother who is 6 years younger than me. I certainly blame things on him because I'm 12. I wouldn't do that. The 6-year-old did it, but I did it. Also, Gus is very dishonest, and that sketch I think was real. I don't think that was a work of fiction.
Yeah, that came from the heart.
Real quick, because Gus just added a message too that we're getting toward the camera battery length. So I would like to now just see. We will move. I hope we have the same boxes. In everyone's grid is Ethan on the top left, and then Danny.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will move by box. Currently, what your vote is, just say the name of the person. Go ahead.
Gus.
Gus.
Well, it seems like we have a unanimous decision.
I looked at Gus's camera to see what he would say.
I also did that too.
I will now undeafen and mute Gus and message it in. Is there a person in the jury that would like to present this? Usually a juror is the one to share that you've arrived at this decision. I will still sentence them, but I would like one of the jurors to deliver the news, if that's okay.
Drew sounded like he had
I
a
was
closing
actually about to
statement.
say I vote
Drew.
Drew if everyone else is cool with that.
Drew, you want to go for that?
Drew as well.
He's well spoken.
All right, I'll go for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I will introduce you. So you don't. I told them they may return. We will physically see Gus return and digitally see Sven and Thor return. I'm waiting on him now. All right. We're loading in with the video. Welcome back, Johnson, and Johnson. I'd like to welcome you back to my courtroom. I want to say that I'm very proud of my jury today. They had a good discussion over everything, and I believe that these are all rational and brave men for doing what they're doing. I want to again stress that the sentencing for this will have to be followed by whoever is guilty. So I will now throw to our representative juror, Mr. Gooden.
Thank you, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here today and giving me this opportunity to inflict justice. So I just an insight into our thought process, at least my thought process as a jury member. I decided early on this crime was committed by a barbaric person. And from what I gathered from Sven and what we all did is that he was just not capable of committing this crime. So we were able to rule Sven out right away. So between Gus and Thor, unfortunately, Gus, we did come to the decision that you are too defensive. You killed a guy one time in a Booger-related thing, and you made up that Facebook post and framed your mom in the process. So sorry, may you rot in hell. Did I do that right?
I would like to say Gus Johnson is now found guilty of Boogerwall in my courtroom. Gus Johnson, you are sentenced to make your Twitter and Instagram bio I did Boogerwall for the rest of the month. You will also have to Instagram post and tweet I did Boogerwall. The sentencing is now put on you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I just want to say, if I may, one final statement before we close out.
You may have the floor.
I just want to say to all the members involved in this decision, you clearly made the right choice. Obviously, this is not a falsehood, and I think you made the choice that was ultimately the best and safest choice for you and your families. I think that this won't come back to bite you in the ass in any way, and we should just take that
Objection. The guilty party has pulled a gun in my courtroom. Absolutely not.
This
Put
is
the
a
gun
kangaroo
away.
court, Your Honor. This is a kangaroo court.
This is not a kangaroo court. This is not a kangaroo court. Put the gun away, or at least take the clip out, goddammit. Not in my courtroom.
How'd you get that past security? I couldn't even bring my phone in here.
I'll be real with you, Drew. The bailiff has slept on my couch on several occasions, and he really owed me a favor. So,
Your Honor, I reject. I object.
I'm disappointed in you. You've
Spoken like a true criminal. Get this guy out.
Also,
of here.
to our point
I
about
want to
doing Booger Wall, why did you come back in here with the gun ready?
Whoa!
He knew it.
Eddie knows I
just
keep it strapped by the PC. I'm just saying that.
I want to close out this trial by thanking all parties involved, especially our juror guests. Let's move through. Thank you, Crank Gameplays, Danny Gonzalez, Drew Gooden, Jax Films, and Nakey Jakey for joining us as the jurors. This went way more professionally than I expected it to. This was fucking awesome. And again, I want to share, I'm glad that we could all agree that this was not a kangaroo court, and the trial is done. Thank you for joining us.